Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome to the latest episode of your Pittsburgh Steelers Syndicate, where we talk all things Pittsburgh Steelers. We are a fans channel run by real, genuine black and gold fans. Myself and Mark love our Pittsburgh Steelers. We watch all the games, we catch up on the videos, we read the news. Guys, we are Steeler through and through. So if you want a Steelers fans view on our Pittsburgh Steelers, then subscribe to the Pittsburgh Steelers Syndicate. And as you can see today, we are going to talk about what are the most realistic scenarios for Mason Rudolph. So guys, what sparked this video? What sparked this little idea in my head about Mason Rudolph? Well, the other day, I came across this quote from Mark Kaboly of The Athletic. Mark Kaboly said about Mason Rudolph, "I think he looked the best out of all the QBs." This was at OTAs and at the mandatory minicamp. Now, obviously, this is one man's opinion. This is Mark Kaboly's opinion. And whether you have any respect for what Mark Kaboly thinks or not, that is up to you. Listening to others, there was nothing, very little negative about our quarterbacks came out of minicamp. Obviously the commentators are only allowed to say what they're told by the players. They can't report on everything that they see at that minicamp or at OTAs unless players or coaches directly mention it to them, which obviously does complicate the situation very, very slightly. So that's Mark Kaboly's opinion. Now, this got me thinking. Mason Rudolph obviously has been with the Pittsburgh Steelers now for a number of years. He's going to his fifth year now. And what realistically is going to happen with Mason Rudolph? If you look at the current Steelers depth chart, now this was the depth chart that Matt Canada said that Mike Tomlin had been very, very clear on. He said that Mitch Trubisky was QB1, Mason Rudolph was QB2, Kenny Pickett for now was QB3, and obviously Chris Oladokun was QB4. He also stated that obviously Mitchell Trubisky and Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett got the majority of the reps, and Chris Oladokun got whatever was left. Now, this obviously leaves a very interesting situation. What will the Steelers actually do with Mason Rudolph? There are a number of different scenarios that actually could come into fruition. And I'll talk about those in a moment. But obviously, at this moment in time, everyone is saying that Mitchell Trubisky is in pole position to be the Steelers quarterback number one, which coming out of training camp, we've certainly heard nothing negative, or we've been told nothing negative by the players or by the commentators as much as they can say about Mitchell Trubisky. But what are the most realistic scenarios for Mason going forward? Well, I had a little think the other day, and these are the scenarios that came to him. So first one, he surprises the world and is QB1. Could that happen? Could that realistically possibly happen? You never know. Steelers could take a chance. It would be a very Steelers thing to do to give him first shot at the job after the fact that he has been there for a number of years now. When we look back to the last QB competition there was between, Jim Miller, between Mike Tomczak, etc., there was no, and the result of that shocked Steelers Nation. This, again, could shock Steelers Nation. Trade him, but does he have any trade value? And what represents true trade value for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Now, if you're an opposition team and you keep hearing the following, you keep hearing from Steelers Nation, from the fans, "Oh, Mason's trash, Mason's not very good. Oh, look," and also the sort of signs that the Steelers give in terms of the fact that they drafted in round one a quarterback. They also went out and within a few hours of free agency signed the top free agent quarterback. Well, sending a sign is that the Steelers don't actually rate him and don't actually think he's their man. Does that say to other franchises, "Look, this is your guy, take him, give us something back for him"? Or are they going to wait for option 3? Cut him. It would save $3 million against the salary cap, which would give us around about $23 million. I'm not quite sure what the figure is now after Minkah Fitzpatrick's deal. So they're the three options. Which do you think is the most realistic of those three options, Steeler Nation? Drop me a comment below. Let me know in the comment section. Do you think he shocks the world, becomes QB1? Do you think he has trade value? And what it would be trade value for Mason Rudolph? Or should the Steelers just cut their losses and go into the season with Chris Oladokun as QB3, Kenny Pickett as QB2, and Mitch Trubisky as QB1? So, guys, what is the most realistic option? Now, personally, this is my personal opinion, right? Let's have a quick look at Mason's stats. Now, obviously, I know that you've got to play devil's advocate with this. You've got to put a caveat on these stats that Mason Rudolph obviously hasn't had many opportunities to take the team. But then you could say that in 2019, at no point did he put up his hand and say, "Yeah, I'm your guy." But then in 2019, he had the Myles Garrett attack and he had the concussion injury, collarbone, etc., etc. So that, there's there's arguments on both sides, isn't there, about Mason Rudolph as our quarterback. Now, if we look at his stats, in 2019, he started in 8 games and played 10 games. His QB record was 5-3-0 in those 8 games he started. He had 176 completions from 283 attempts with a completion percentage of 62.2%. Yards, 1,765. 13 touchdowns, touchdown percentage of 4.6, 9 interceptions, and interception percentage of 3.2%, long of 80 yards. In 2020, he played in 5 games, but only started 1, going 0-1 as a starter. That was obviously losing to the Browns at the end of the season, where he had 43 attempts, obviously 25 completions throughout that season, 224 yards, with 2 TDs, 4.7% touchdown percentage, interceptions 1, 2.3%. In 2021, he played in 2 games, but only started 1. That was the tie against Detroit Lions. And again, there's different arguments on that as well, isn't there? Some fans say that he did a good job. Other fans say that we could have easily won the game if he hadn't bounced past the ball to an unmarked or uncovered Ray McLeod in the end zone. But then others say that he was driving the Steelers down the field for a field goal in overtime until Pat Freiermuth fumbled the ball. And there was also the Deontay Johnson fumble. So there's arguments always on both sides of the camp with Mason Rudolph. Now, what do I think is the most realistic expectation for Mason Rudolph? What do I think will happen with Mason Rudolph? Realistically, I don't think he's going to be QB1. I think that is the key signs that are coming out of Pittsburgh at this moment in time. You would not draft a QB in round 1 or go out with a few hours of free agency opening and sign a quarterback if you thought you had the man on your roster. You would draft someone in later rounds as a backup. You'd pick up a less prominent free agent, someone like Mariota, for example, who could come in and be a backup. Or is it they're trying to up the level of competition to force the standards up? That could also be a very Steelers thing to do. Realistically, I don't actually think that Mason Rudolph has a lot of trade value at this moment in time. The only way he's going to up his trade value is by, number 1, continuing to impress in training camp. Number 2, in preseason, when he takes the field, actually looking the part as a quarterback. That's how we're going to get the trade value upon him. Now, some people have said out there that it's a waste of time giving him reps in practice. It's a waste of time giving him reps in preseason. We've seen him play. We don't need to see him anymore. I dispute that. I think we do need to see him play, because if we are going to trade him, and that is, I think, probably at the end of the day what the Steelers may try to do, then you up the value of that guy. You need to show the teams that he's worth going for, and that you're not going to cut him, because that's probably the thought in a lot of teams' mind right now. Well, let's just wait till he gets cut, and then we'll pick him up for cheap. That's what they're thinking at this moment in time. Now, what would represent real value for Mason Rudolph? Mason Rudolph was a 3rd round pick. Now, realistically, you're not going to get a 3rd round pick for someone who has not started many games and has not really proved themselves in the NFL as yet. If in preseason and in training camp, he can really show himself to be a good, solid quarterback, which I think he can be. He is a very good, solid backup. It may be a case that we can get a 5th or a 6th round pick for him, or maybe even a 4th round pick with a 5th round or a 5th round. I don't know, guys. That's the options that are out there. My personal view now, this is my personal view, and I'm not Omar Khan. I'm no expert on this, guys, but I think that if we could get a 4th round or a 5th round pick for him, it would be well worth trading, especially as we only have 6 picks in next year's draft. It would be a great way to build up that draft capital, especially given the fact that Omar Khan has talked about wanting to continue to build through the draft. Now, this would be the only way I would actually let him release him from the roster. Realistically, thinking about it logically, and that's something that we sometimes struggle with, don't we? When the red mist descends and we get into the argumentative mode about our players, Mason's trash, Mason's rubbish, Mason's garbage, which I have said in the past, and I'm trying to play devil's advocate here. Realistically, you need someone with some experience there behind Mitchell and or Kenny, because Chris Oladokun is not a top level talent. He struggled with ball accuracy at times. He hasn't played in big school games in college. He is coming out of college. He is a rookie. Do you really want to have to turn to him if anything, God forbid, should happen to Mitchell and Kenny? Yes, I know that would be very, very, very unlucky, but it could happen. You never know. So realistically, what do we think the QB order is going to be going into the new season? Well, I think realistically, you're going to be looking at Mitchell Trubisky as QB1, Kenny Pickett as QB2, Mason Rudolph as QB3. It may be even that they interchange on game day between who is the backup, who is on the sidelines. That could even be a possibility for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Realistically, I would look to trade him to get some trade value to build up our draft capital going into next year's draft. Well, that's my thoughts anyway about Mason Rudolph. What do you think? Drop me a comment below. Let me know what you think about the whole Mason Rudolph situation and the scenarios the Steelers have in front of them regarding Mason. Thanks for listening, guys. And let's finish this as we always do with Here We Go, Steelers. Come on!